Hello and welcome back to CentralCoastRadio.com. Well, now it is time to check out a film that's got a lot of people talking at the moment. The film is called The Iron Claw, and of course this is the film that is about a dynasty basically in wrestling that happened in the 1980s. There was a family called the Van Erichs, and the first to come in that line was actually their father, Fritz, played by Holt McCallany. And this tells the story of his sons, because as a lot of people who know wrestling will know, it was pretty tragic what happened to this family that was made up of brothers Kevin, played by Zac Efron, Kerry, played by Jeremy Allen White, and David, played by Harris Dickinson. And it kind of goes through and looks at what led to this supposed curse, I guess you could say, that was on the family. And there was also Mike as well, played by Stanley Simons. It's all told through the eyes of Kevin, the Zac Efron character. So it also explores the relationship that he has as well with Pam, played by Lily James. But it basically just chronicles the ups and downs of this family. As I said to Lee after we watched this film, this is almost the perfect companion piece for the Mickey Rourke film, The Wrestler, which also looked at the pitfalls and the downfalls of what can happen to somebody in wrestling. But Lee, you're not a wrestling fan at all, but what were your thoughts on Iron Claw, this film?
Well, you don't have to be into wrestling to appreciate this film. You'll be in awe of the acting in this movie for the portrayal of the Von Erich family in terms of each family member's personality, their character, their individual stories, as well as their collective story as a family. You'll also be in awe of the commitment of the actors to learn how to wrestle and get their bodies ready for the role. They employed a trainer, Chavo Guerrero Jr. Hopefully I've pronounced that correctly. As I said, I'm not into wrestling per se, but I believe he came on board to provide training to the actors.
And he also plays the Sheik in this movie as well. The Sheik, of course, being the famous 1980s wrestler.
Yeah, so as you can imagine, there was a focus on gaining muscle. They would have to have the right diet. They'd have to learn the mechanics of wrestling. For example, the footwork, the jumps, the landing, the arm work, punches, things like that. And of course the theatrics, because wrestling is theatrical.
Yep.
It is, it is a part of acting. So I could certainly feel my mood changing within the movie to anger when people were hurt in the ring. And however, there were many moments that your emotions changed during the film, not just during the wrestling scenes. Your heart goes out to a family that have to go through so much heartache, and they're just trying to survive. I was impressed with all the actors. However, I would love to see Zac Efron nominated for an Oscar for this film. His performance really stood out. I think there's a lot of tragedy in this film. There's joy in the film as well in terms of some family achievements. And the film itself is based on, of course, a real story, as you mentioned earlier. And I think for those of us that don't know this story or haven't heard this story before, it is acted out so well that you believe that you know these people, you believe that you understand the family, and that you feel for this family. It's always good to have those photos at the end of the film of the real family. But I thought the acting was absolutely brilliant. And you see Zac Efron's body, how much it transformed into a wrestler. The jump there's a certain jump in the film where he jumps off the side of the ring. And you just see that athlete in him.
He's almost done a bit of a Christian Bale with this film, because I saw him in two films that came out last year. Gold, the Australian film, and Firestarter, and in Gold he kind of looks almost malnourished, like, because that's part of the film. And in Firestarter he just looked like regular Zac Efron. So the fact that within 12 months he's got his body to look the way he does in Iron Claw, you're talking kind of Christian Bale, and I'm trying to think of the female actress that did the same thing, Renee Zellweger, when she was up and yo-yoing her weight for the roles that she was playing as well. So, because he's unrecognisable, really, isn't he, in this?
Oh, absolutely brilliant. A lot of hard work behind the scenes has to happen for that transformation. And of course, learning all these moves for wrestling. We know that Zac Efron's had to dance before in movies in the past.
Sing.
Of course. Sing as well. And, of course you can use some of those qualities, moving your feet around the ring. Dancing's going to bring, something to the table where he's going to pick up those moves easily. But to pick up a whole sport, to pull that off, and for a movie to show such an in-depth look at wrestling is just amazing. I think too, I've always seen wrestling as a performance, and I couldn't understand why you would be involved with a sport where the winner's kind of already set out, the acting is already set out. It's not real per se.
The result's known before you step in the ring.
Yeah, but I think what I got from this movie, which I may understand more now, is that while the performance is real, in terms of it's all laid out, it's all theatre, and you already know the outcome, the actual harm to each person's body is also real. So that physicality, the understanding of the sport, but the strength you have to have and the ability you have to have is quite in depth, and people are still getting hurt. Not that I enjoy that type of sport. I'm not saying I enjoy wrestling, but I had a greater understanding of, I suppose, the pain that people go through, and how strong you need to be, and also, I guess, the gift you have to be able to fight. You still do fight. The fight is real, but the outcome is staged. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, well, remember last year you and I went and saw that theatre production of Scandinavian mythology told, but it was done with wrestlers on stage doing it, and we saw someone get hurt that night. Like, even though it's all staged and it's planned beforehand, somebody can still get really, really hurt. And I think that's kind of what I liked with this movie, was that these actors actually did those stunts. Like, there was even an element of danger for the actors that were in this film. And I think, like I said before, one of the reasons why I say this film is the perfect companion piece for Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler is that not only do both films show kind of the downside and what it can do to a person's body, but the films are so natural. When you're watching this film, I didn't find myself watching it and thinking I'm watching actors play wrestlers. And I think also, like Mickey Rourke's performance in The Wrestler, this doesn't just focus on wrestling as in the ring. It looks more at like what happens outside of the ring. I don't want to give away any spoilers, but one of the things one of the downfalls that happens to one of these characters in the film is because he can't settle down after the adrenaline of a fight and has to go out and do something that night. Now, I know that's not what happened in real life. I actually did a little bit of research into the Von Erich family after I watched the film, and that person didn't have the accident on that night, like they show in the movie. But still it shows that really strong thing about with sports people not being able to calm down after a fight or something like that. But also, I think this also shows the downside of what happens when you've got a father who tries to push their passion onto their children. There's one child here, Mike, that definitely doesn't want to follow in his dad's footsteps, but he's kind of forced to. And you kind of wonder, even with the other brothers, would they have been that into wrestling if their father hadn't have forced that onto them? So what did you think of that character, the father, Fritz, played by Holt McInerney?
Oh, he did a brilliant job in acting as Fritz. This character is very strong in terms of his beliefs, his values, his expectation of family.
He ranks his kids like you do sports players.
It's, that's a bit confronting too, saying in front of each child where they're ranked in the family, and basically saying that they can move in their ranking based on their achievements because of his expectations. So, you kind of, your emotions well up for these young people when you can see the expectations that the dad has on them. You can also see, as well that their dad wants a better life for all of them, including himself. But he also uses his kids in some ways. I won't say how because that will become apparent when you watch the film. But I think, just the portrayal of this dad, of this character, I think Holt did an amazing job.
Yeah, and also the screenwriter, director, Sean Durkin, who people might remember about a decade ago made an absolute masterpiece of a movie called Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. There's a naturalness in this film in the way that he writes it. And, I think I mentioned that a little bit before, but even in the way that he shows the relationship with the parents, like there's a bit of a weird relationship there. If one of the brothers goes to one of the parents and says, hey, I think Mikey's having a bit of a tough time at the moment, the parent's response is, well, you go and deal with it. You're the one that spotted it. Don't put it on me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think Sean Durkin has actually done a really, really good job with the way that he's done those scenes, because they're natural. They're not a scene where it's like, oh, great, so that scene was just put in there so we can see what a bastard the dad is. Sean Durkin's screenplay is so natural with the way that he does it. The other bit that I love too about the way he writes it is there's suspense in there at times that doesn't even force the suspense. Like when Lily James's character first asks Zac Efron's character out on a date, my first thought was, like in Friday Night Lights, this is a girl just trying to find a way out of Texas by marrying a sports person. So you kind of, when you first meet her, you kind of think maybe there's a hidden side to her. But I love that because it turns out that she's the sweetest person that's ever going to come into his life. But it's the way that Sean Durkin has written that, and it's that preconception that we have nowadays of what life is like in the South of America for that to work. But yeah, I love Sean Durkin, the way he's done this. This is a sports movie, but it really looks at outside of the ring and family life. Like Mickey Rourke's The Wrestler won awards, and this film deserves to do so as well because, like I said, it is the perfect companion piece for that film.
Yeah, you can see, the dad, he's totally focused on sport more so than anything else, whereas the mum, Doris, played by Maura Tierney, she is focused on God and traditional beliefs, religion, and she has expectations of her family to go to church, and she has lots of values based around her religion, but at the same time she submits to her husband's control and I suppose obsession with sport.
So what are you going to give this one out of 5 and why?
I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5. I thought the acting was incredible in this movie. I think that for a sport that I don't admire that much because I'm against violence. And so this sport for me is, although it's a chosen sport, I don't like to see people getting hurt. But in the case of this film, I loved the storyline. I loved learning about the family. I think that, as I said, there's challenges within the movie for the family. There's tragedy within the movie. Everything was acted out really well, and I think every single person brought on board as an actor in this film was the right fit for the film.
Yeah, definitely.
And as I said to you earlier, I think Zac Efron deserves to be nominated for an Oscar for his performance in this.
Yeah, I thought there was actually a few people in this film that should get Oscar nominations. I even thought Holt McCallany deserves a nomination as well. But look, I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5. I thought it was a really, really well-written film. I think it's one of those movies where everyone's going to be talking about Zac Efron's performance, but poor Sean Durkin is going to be forgotten about for his screenplay and his direction. So I'm going to give this one 4 out of 5, and you gave it
4 out of 5.
So there we go. We both gave it 4 out of 5. The Iron Claw is in cinemas now, so check your local cinema guide to see where it is showing near you. We've both given The Iron Claw 4 out of 5. You're on centralcoastradio.com.